do a backflip.
Does she not?
Brother! Hello and welcome back to Chill and Thrill Reviews, where we dive into the dark, the disturbing, and the downright terrifying. Today, we're stepping into the sunshine-soaked nightmare that is Midsommar, Ari Aster's haunting follow-up to Hereditary and a film that redefines horror in broad daylight. On the surface, it's a story about a young couple visiting a remote Swedish commune during a midsummer festival, but what unfolds is anything but a simple cultural exchange. Grief, emotional detachment, and manipulation weave through a pastel-colored landscape of ancient rituals and unsettling smiles. As Danny, a woman devastated by personal tragedy, joins her distant boyfriend and his friends on this trip, what starts as an escape becomes a hallucinatory descent into a cult's most sacred and terrifying traditions. Midsommar doesn't hide in the shadows. It stares at you, unblinking, bathed in light, asking you to witness every petal, every scream, every choice, and decide if letting go might actually mean being consumed.
Yeah, started off Sweet Cheeks.
So, I went into this movie. I thought it was a different one. I thought this was a completely different movie. I quickly realized this wasn't the movie I've seen. So, this was my first watch. This movie was fucking crazy, bro. I don't think I've ever seen a movie that made me question reality so much lately, bro. After like the last couple movies that were kind of like cliche, I want to say, like kind of, besides Jane Doe, and even Jane Doe didn't like leave me stunned after almost every scene. Like I felt like every scene was just like crazy.
I swear, that's the magic of A24. I feel.
I guess so,
I'm
bro.
pretty-
I've never seen a cult movie that made me feel like this scared. Yeah, like this shit's scary as shit, dude. Like the beginning when they jump off the cliff and they get their fucking the lady get her face blown off. I would have ran right there. I don't think I would have stuck around after that very long. I think I would have packed. I don't even think I would have packed, honestly. I think I would have just left.
But
And that
all of
would've
those
been it.
people that were trying to leave ended up getting killed.
Yeah, I know.
So you
but
kind of had to
wouldn't-
just go out on your own. I think everyone was like, they were like hunted down if they assumed that they had distrust or like they seemed like they were going to leave or something.
Well, the crazy part is he said between like the ages of like 19 and 34, you're supposed to travel the world.
18
So,
and
like,
36, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just thought the movie was crazy. The ending was really crazy. The whole sex scene was wild. I gotta say, that was wild as shit.
That's to say the least. Holy crap.
Yeah.
It's crazy that they rely on this like prophet that's like this kid with like Down syndrome or whatever. Like I don't know what he had, but they never really specified what he had.
They said he's inbred. That's
Yeah.
just a product of inbreeding is disformities.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, something.
Camden, you know that way too well.
He's got pretty close parents.
Just like Hereditary, this movie left me stunned. I don't really know what to say about it besides that it was really fucking creepy and scary. I don't know what I rated Hereditary, but it's on the same level. I'm gonna say like 9.5, 9, somewhere in there. That's it. That's all I gotta say.
That's all
This
you have to
movie's-
say?
Yeah. I just talked for
Too long. No, I'm just
3
kidding.
minutes.
A whole 3 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. I fucking
I mean-
loved this, dude.
This isn't like my normal speed of horror, I think.
Yeah.
And that, like, it's hard for me to like talk about it. Let me move my
I will
camera.
say this movie was very long for a horror movie, but I was engaged
It was
the entire
very-
time.
Dude, usually when movies are this long, and it's not just horror, but like movies in general, if they're this long, and usually by like midway through, I'm like, how long is left in this movie? And the only reason I knew it was 45 minutes left is because you pause when you
Yeah,
went to the
yeah.
bathroom. And I was like, damn, this movie's getting up to the juicy part, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, the London guy being strung up and he's still alive, seeing his lungs breathe, dude.
That
That is
was
like top
insane.
10. That is like one of my major fears is being like alive and in some like condition like that.
Where
You
you're
know what I
just
mean?
feeling pain nonstop. I'm
But you
surprised the
don't know
person
where
just
it's
didn't die
coming.
from shock, though.
Yeah. Well,
That's
they're all
insane.
drugs and stuff. I'm sure
Yeah.
his pain his sensory nerves were numbed
Also, did
quite a
you
bit.
guys notice that at the time where he got lit on fire, at the end, the guy was like, "This is for your pain," and then he instantly felt pain as soon as the fire
Yeah,
touched
because
him.
it's a cult.
Yeah, yeah, the whole thing is it's based around the faith. You know,
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah.
based around their faith that what they believe is true. So when the I guess the priest or preacher or whatever that role would be in that community says this is for your pain and this is for your fear. If they have faith that they won't feel anything, they believe it, and
Even
womp,
though,
they did.
yeah. And then you burn alive in a fire and you figure out how painful it is.
Also, how about the guy that missed the rock?
That was
And he's
messed
just
up.
sitting there, and then the guy's just like, and they all take
That
turns
was
smashing
brutal.
his head in,
That was
bro.
brutal.
Yeah. So this
Brutal
movie
movie, 9.5. That's my final rating.
this movie had
Or 9. 9.
many good shots. I really liked the camera work in this. I liked how they set up their scenes. Uh,
Oh, the fucking beginning of the movie, the suicide. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was crazy too, bro. That was like setting the tone for the whole movie.
yeah, they kind of
Mhm.
just threw us right into it. So the way they do shots was incredible. The way they use sound is incredible. Camden pointed it out earlier in the movie, but they shut off the music during intense scenes so that you are forced to take in what's going on camera, and you don't have anything to distract you from it, so you feel a lot more attached to the narrative that's going on. Their use of the makeup and stuff for gore for the practical effects was really cool. Um, I think the Blood Eagle scene was like probably the craziest scene. Either that or the head splitting
That
open on the
might
rock.
that might have been the craziest thing I've seen in horror.
Blood Eagle?
Blood Eagle.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty
I feel like
gnarly.
that might have been the craziest thing I've seen in horror, man. The guy, he's clearly still alive because he's breathing.
Yeah, his lungs are splayed out and you can see his lungs inflating and deflating,
And he's got like the chickens like jumping on him and shit, bro.
chewing
Like,
at him.
yeah.
Yeah, insane. I plot wise, it's really good. I haven't watched a. I don't think I've watched a few cult movies, I think, but this one is like really cool because it doesn't go into the supernatural at all. It is clearly this guy or these cultists are using drugs to manipulate people who come in and manipulate them to follow their faith or be part of their faith. Um,
And if
which
they're
makes it
not,
scarier
kill
because
them.
this could fucking happen to you. And
It will.
oh,
This
and
will happen to you.
honestly, this it was the reality for a lot of people like back in the 70s. If you talk about like the Kool-Aid drinkers or a lot
Mhm.
of there was a lot of like religious cults back in the 70s and 9.5.
This is my favorite movie I've ever seen. I love
Seriously?
this.
Yes.
I loved this. So I didn't think I would like it going into it. I saw that it was a psychological horror, and I was expecting a early on getting the occult vibes. I was expecting, all right, well, this is gonna go like dive heavy into the supernatural and play around with demonology and stuff like that, and it didn't do any of that. It
I'm so
was,
happy it didn't.
I know,
Like
I
It
they
would
know,
have
it
had
was
taken
their
away
so
own
from it.
good.
Yeah.
It
they
was so
had
good.
their own scripture, but it was passed down by like what they
Yeah.
say he was like the 17th one
Yeah,
or
something
something
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah.
Like so
It,
the information just got changed over and over
Progressively,
again.
yeah.
yeah. And it's so refreshing to see a film that follows this kind of plot, the occult plot, that doesn't actually nothing actually tied into anything extremely religious. They talked about the scripture, they talked about their afterlife and their passage into it. Other than that, the whole movie was based around the induction of people into this cult via psychedelic drugs and
And
social
manipulation.
manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of foreshadowing early on in the film when they first when Christian first said, "Hey guys, Danny is coming with us," and I forget his name.
Mike
The
or not Mike.
Ignar or something like that.
Yeah, he was like, "I'm actually really happy that you're going to be joining us," and he immediately says, "You know, I'm very sorry about the loss that you experienced." So he's aware of how emotionally fragile she is at the beginning,
Yeah.
and he's aware of what they're going to be doing when they get there, and it's like, yeah,
Which
that
is
tied in
exactly
super
what
well.
cult
But
leaders do,
in
which is
Mhm.
his
awesome.
mind, though, because he doesn't think it's wrong.
But
No,
he's
this is
also
just his
told by
religion.
the cult to bring people in, and
Yeah.
cultists
He
in
thinks
the
it's a
real
good
world,
thing.
they'll do exactly what Camden mentioned, is they'll go after people who have just gone through like family losses, just lost their job, something where they're in like a completely uh, unsteady state in life, and then that way they could be pulled into this cult where it seems nice and dandy, and then you're bashing in Unk's head after he jumped off
hmm
a cliff.
So something interesting I encourage you to look into is something called the Yellow Deli. It's an actual food chain that is run and funded by a
Sandwich
community,
company.
an a cult, and the workers are not paid. They're part of this community, and they it's essentially they're encouraged to, when they work there, people that come in, they are extremely friendly to you. They try and pry into your life and see if they can try and induct you into their community. This is a real thing that exists today. You could
Yeah.
look into it. It's very interesting. But I've listened to a lot of stuff about different cults like Dave Berkowitz, Jim Jones. There is one, I believe he was Canadian. I can't think of his name, but he was very famous, very
You
infamous.
could you could put Waco in there because they're technically
Yeah,
coal.
Manson.
Yeah.
And what I thought was interesting is, out of all the ones that I've researched, it all revolves around one charismatic leader. It's
Yeah.
one guy who's extremely charismatic and can convince people to follow this, but this is a community that all works together. And like their their overall goal isn't just to keep inducting new members. It's they have to do this sometimes because of the inbreeding.
Yeah. They would like to
You
keep
know,
their
Well,
bloodline pure, and they even
yeah,
mention
because
that.
they don't want to make it where there's like always a guy that's
yeah,
like doing the prophecy.
yeah. So
That fact that they purposefully inbreed so that they have a profit is insane
When he's
yeah,
dead, when he
when
dies.
they need to. That's just
hmm
insane to like cults.
And then like the guy that's inbred is just fucking drawing nonsense.
he's
That's
just
the crazy
scribbling, and
part.
they're interpreting it as religious scripture. I liked every part of this. Florence Pugh's a really good actor. She's one of my favorite actors.
I
Um,
think the
Will
pretty much
Poulter, I really like.
pretty
Yeah.
much everybody was a good actor but Christian.
Well, no,
Christian was a good actor.
He's a
he
good
was just
actor.
a dick.
Yeah,
His character
was a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, that was
Yeah.
something too that I felt so conflicted at the end, because in the beginning of the movie he expresses that he's overwhelmed in the relationship and doesn't really want to be part of it, but then her mother and father and sister all die via suicide, matricide and patricide, and then that sets the tone for where he's almost guilt tripped into this relationship.
Yeah.
And I for most of the movie I was like, I don't care if this guy dies, he kind of has it coming. And I like thinking back, I think I'm totally wrong on that. I don't think he had it coming at all. I think given the circumstances that he was put in, the way he acted wasn't crazy.
Well, he was a dick, and he was
He was a
very.
dick.
He shouldn't.
He was
shouldn't
very
have smashed at the end.
He was very inactive. Like, he wasn't a
Mhm.
good friend. He wasn't a good boyfriend. Not a good student because he's leeching off of other people. And then, additionally,
That doesn't
No, I
mean
can't-
that he deserved.
he
to
also
die
smashed
the
at the
way
end.
he
He
did.
didn't deserve to be stuffed in a bear and burnt to death. Okay.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
No.
However,
I
he was a
mean-
bad person.
He probably was. Yeah. He probably was a bad person, but all we saw of him was him being forced into this shitty situation he didn't want to be in and being guilt tripped into. I hate
I
saying
think he
guilt
handled it
tripped
the
into
best way.
caring about somebody, but that's kind of what it was. And like, even when he did have sex with that girl at the end, he opted out of it a couple times. He's like, no, and they had to drug him and
Yeah.
pretty much,
Force basically
pretty,
put him
they
in
had
there.
to. They literally grabbed his ass and made him do it.
Granny
there
did.
was that
Granny
scene.
did.
Yeah. So grandma did. Yeah,
Grandma
I
was
saw
flesh.
more grandma titties than I wanted to today.
I didn't see enough.
Yeah.
So
Can you give your rating?
10 out of 10. This is
Yapper?
my favorite movie. I
Yeah.
love this
So
so. I
you
would
like
watch
this?
this
You
I'd
like
watch
this
this
movie
again.
better than Jane Doe?
by far.
All
Yeah.
right.
This movie was incredible. Definitely
I
on the
love
must
this.
watch.
The practical effects were great. The acting was great. The soundtrack was great. How they shot the scenes was great. The characters were great, even the ones that I didn't like. There wasn't a bit of bad acting through this whole thing.
Yeah.
Even when Christian was being an asshole, you could tell that it was like a social act.
Like, subscribe, and comment.
his Uber.
Or I will come and get you in my Uber. No, I'm just kidding. I will get you in my Uber, and I will bring you to a cult, and we will set you on fire in a bear costume.
And then I'll make
Swear
you
to
have
God.
sex with me.
It'll be
And
sick,
then I'll make you have sex with my sister,
which is Camden.
which is
Yeah.
Camden.